What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here. It is Friday, October 16th, 2020, and I wanted to talk to you guys about China in this video. And I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into China and talk about some upcoming threats from China that we all need to be prepared for in the coming years, months, weeks, and decades, okay? First I want to just talk about some recent news that kind of got me thinking about China. And there were some breaking news that came out the last couple of days regarding China. First of all, they threatened military force against the U.S. If we, got involved in Taiwan. And also, they put their military on high alert for some reason. This was about 2 days ago. Um, the Chinese president, or dictator, whatever you want to call him, Xi Jinping. He put the military on high alert. He said all the military needs to be on high alert. The Chinese military. Nobody knows why. I suspect it's because of the election coming up here in the U.S. Maybe they're going to try to take advantage of our election, and maybe they're going to make a move somewhere in India or South China Sea, or maybe they'll make a move against Taiwan. Who knows? But um, I know that we did sell a few HIMARS rockets to Taiwan, which may have agitated China a little bit. But that's one piece of recent news to mention, and we've seen China make a lot of these kinds of threats in the last couple of years, ever since Trump became president. I feel like China has been even more aggressive now, just because China's getting more powerful economically, and they feel more bold. Their military is getting stronger. Another thing that was very, very concerning that I wanted to share with you guys is that there was reports of Chinese troops massing in Canada at the border. Okay, at the U.S. Canadian border, there were reports of up to 100,000 Chinese troops at the border, and I don't know if that's a rumor. I've had a lot of reputable people and preppers tell me this information, so I have no reason to doubt their information. But I thought I would mention that. And what's more important about that is that it just came to light that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, has a agreement with China for defense, common defense. Okay, and under that agreement, it would basically allow China to station troops and military assets in Canada. All right. And that's very, very concerning. And what's really weird about that is that last week I did a video about how a U.S. invasion would look like. If China and Russia were to ever try to invade the U.S., I kind of broke down how they would go about doing that, on a military planning level. Um, and one of the things I mentioned in my video is that I believe that Russia and China would try to come from Canada, and basically they would cross over the Arctic and conquer Canada quickly in a blitzkrieg style fashion, because Canada is very remote and the population is low. So Russia and China could quickly conquer Canada, and then they would be on our northern border, and they could move their assets into Canada. They could set up missile shields, S-400s, anti-aircraft missile batteries, which would basically deny the U.S. Air Force, the ability to fly over Canadian airspace once they have those S-400s up. But that's one of the things that I mentioned in my video. And now all of a sudden, this week we get news that, China is putting troops on the Canadian border, and that they have this secret agreement with Canada for years. They've had a secret agreement of common defense of assets, which means that China could send troops into Canada to defend its assets that it has in Canada. Okay. So basically, if let's say if China feels like uh, they could make up an excuse to deploy troops to Canada, and they could say, well, they feel like the U.S. is threatening their assets in Canada, so they're going to deploy troops there. All right, so that's very concerning. And then obviously the U.S. Or not the U.S. military, the Chinese military on high alert now. That's very concerning as well. So, we need to be on red alert right now. We're heading into an election. All right. This is not a normal election by any means. We've had a global pandemic this year, an economic collapse, and now we have this election where we're only going to have one debate going into the election. So it's a very weird time right now, and I would not be surprised if China tried to take advantage of the situation either by hitting us with an EMP or cyber attacks, or to try to take down our power grid, our communications, our internet. That's a real possibility, in my opinion, around the election time. So, you need to get all your preps in place just in case that happens. I think a cyber attack is very likely. I think an attack on our comms is highly likely, and EMP and power grid attacks very likely. Okay, and that's just in the short term. Um, so I want to kind of talk about long-term threats, okay, not just short-term threats in the immediate horizon, but beyond the horizon. What's lurking for us as preppers beyond the horizon. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what can we expect from China? And in my opinion, I believe that China, they want to have, obviously, for a lot of people, this may be common sense, but, China wants global domination. They want to control the world. Um, and, the only thing that's stopping them from doing that is the United States and the West. Okay. So they have to somehow, eliminate us. Okay. Because we're standing in the way of them conquering everything and having full control. So how would they be able to eliminate us? Well, there's two ways they could eliminate us: economically or militarily. Okay. Economically, they're already surpassing us. And if the trend continues the way it's been for the last 20 years, in 10 to 20 years, China's going to be the world's superpower economically. They already are. They probably already have the strongest economy in the world. But as time goes on, it's going to get stronger and stronger. They're going to expand their economic horizons, and we're not going to be able to compete with them economically anymore. And I think that's something that we need to think about as preppers, thinking long term. Another thing is military. I personally believe that China, their main goal is to take out the U.S. They want to eliminate us altogether. They want to. I personally believe that China is preparing for a war with the United States. Okay, if you look at everything they've been doing, they're building up their air force, they're building up their stealth fighters, they're building up their nuclear missiles, they're building up their navy. Okay, they're building up a lot of their offensive weaponry. Okay, stealth fighters and nuclear weapons and navy, that's not defensive weaponry, that's offensive weaponry. Okay. So I think that their ultimate goal is to invade the U.S., in my opinion, like Red Dawn style invasion. All right. I think that's a possibility that we can't rule out. The U.S. has never been invaded, since the Revolutionary War. Since the founding of our country, we've never had foreign armies, invade us because of the oceans that surround us, but I think that could change in the future. All right. And I do believe that China wants to take us over. I think they want to take over Australia, and I think they also want to take over Russia. When I say take over, I mean military occupation. I think they want to militarily go into Canada and the U.S. and take over us, take over our land. They want to do that to Australia and also Russia. Okay, that's my long term thoughts. And in the meantime, they're not ready for a invasion right now. China is not ready for a war with the US. So until they're ready for that war with the US, the invasion, the World War III, until they're ready for that, they're going to do other things. Okay. Some of these other things that I think they could do is EMPs, try to take down our internet, and cyber attacks. Okay. They can do cyber attacks to, harm our corporations and private sector companies, which affects our, economy. They could go after the stock market, the financial sector. They could also, hit us with an EMP, which I think is a lot more likely than people realize, and I'll get into that in a second. Why an EMP is highly likely, in my opinion. Um, and so I personally believe that a war with China is inevitable. I think it's their long term strategy. Their long term strategy is to expand their territory, because if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see how small China is. The landmass of China, for the amount of people that they have, is extremely small. They have billions of people, and their country is smaller than the United States. Okay. So they're going to have to deal with that problem at some point. Their population continues to grow. They don't have good resources. They don't have good farming land. All right. They have extreme terrain over there. It's either they have huge mountains or they have dry deserts. They don't have good growing areas where they can grow food. So eventually, as time goes on, they're going to have to they're going to feel pressure to expand their territory, and have places for their people to live and to grow food and find resources. So I think logically the first thing that they would do is, they're going to need Russia to attack us. So they're not going to attack Russia, although I do think that in the future they will eventually turn on Russia and conquer Siberia for the resources. Okay, but for now, China and Russia are allies. And the reason why is that Russia needs China for their trade and economy. They do a lot of trade with China, and China needs Russia for military support and weaponry. Okay, and also resources. Okay, because Russia has a lot of resources. They have huge land, so they have gas, they have lumber, they have minerals, they have oil. China doesn't have any of that. So it's kind of like a mutually beneficial relationship between Russia and China. Russia gives China weapons, gas, oil, lumber, minerals, and in return, China, trades with Russia, and Russia makes money by selling all those things to China. The lumber, the resources, the oil, the gas. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Okay. But at some point, they're going to turn on each other, but they need each other right now. And they need each other in order to defeat us in a war in the future. Okay, so they're going to stay together as long as possible. But eventually, I think China will turn on Russia and try to conquer Siberia. I think they would also try to go after Australia as well, and parts of Africa, which would be easy, low hanging fruit for China. Canada also. But that's their long-term goal, in my opinion. And I know it sounds crazy and it doesn't sound realistic, but just look at Nazi Germany, guys. Nazi Germany exploded into this world power, and Hitler took over all of Europe and almost took over Russia. Okay, he almost conquered Russia, and it happened overnight. And China is, much more powerful than Hitler was. So why don't we think that China couldn't do what Hitler did, and invade neighboring countries and then start to spread? They already have a presence in every continent. They have real estate in every continent. So we have to think about the long-term threat again with China. And in addition to that, the EMP and the internet is really, and cyber attacks is really what I think they're going to do in the meantime, until they are ready for an actual war with us. Until then, they're not going to be able to fight us one-on-one because we're going to win. So they're going to have to resort to sneak attacks like EMPs, cyber attacks, and taking down our internet, okay, which will set us back economically. What I think also what they could do is hit us with an EMP, sit back and watch us uh, you know, go back 5 or 10 years economically in time. And this will give them time to, grow their economy while we're struggling to survive, after the aftermath of an EMP. So, they could, for example, set off an EMP, which would set us back many years. Okay, it would set us back many years economically. And another thing about the EMPs, which so I want to talk about that now because I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh yeah, EMP, that's not realistic. That we would just nuke them if they did that." Well, it sounds good on paper, yeah, we would just nuke them, okay? But we're not going to be able to track that EMP. We're not going to know who sent that EMP to us. You know why? Because EMPs are on satellites now, okay? During the Cold War, during the Soviet Union, all right, the Russian government realized that the best way to set off an EMP is to put an EMP on a satellite, and that satellite can be constantly orbiting the Earth, and it could stay up there for decades, 50 years, 100 years, it could stay up there, and it could have that EMP on it. And if something happens, all they got to do is push a button and that EMP goes off, okay? And we would never know who pushed the button, okay? Because there's, millions of satellites orbiting the Earth right now as I speak. All right, there's thousands and thousands of satellites, and there's no way that we would know whose satellite had that EMP. Okay, and again, I'm not pulling this out of my butt. You can read about it. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union, they had plans to put EMPs on satellites. Okay, in the 1950s. All right, so 70 years ago, the Soviet Union had plans to do that. So what do you think they have now? Okay, what do you think Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, what do you think they have now? If they had plans 70 years ago to do this, there's probably hundreds of satellites with EMPs on them, floating in space right now as we speak, waiting to be detonated at any time, and we would never know who did it, okay? And that's really my concern, is that a lot of preppers, they don't prep for EMPs, they prep for civil war and stuff like that, and I think an EMP is a lot more likely, just because of China and Russia are going to start to feel more and more desperate, especially if Trump gets reelected and the US starts to get stronger economically, militarily, because Trump is trying to restore America to its great status again. China and Russia may start to feel desperate, and they may decide to push the trigger one day and detonate an EMP to set us back, back to the Obama days, and I think that's a possibility, and I think we need to be ready for that. Okay, if we're talking about an EMP, we're talking about minimum 6 to 12 months of no power at all. Okay. Um, and again, we wouldn't be able to trace back who detonated the EMP, so we can't just start lobbing nukes at random countries. All right, so that's what's really concerning, and that's why I'm very concerned about EMPs, because they're not launched from missiles anymore. Okay, they're put on satellites, and that kind of eliminates the deterrence factor of us nuking them. All right, because we're not going to know who to nuke. All right. Um, so, we have the long term threat from China. Like I mentioned, I do believe that they want to have a war with us. I think they want to invade us. I think China wants to expand their territory, much like Hitler. If you look at Xi Jinping is an extremist, just like Hitler was, an extreme communist. Okay. They could easily, conquer half of Asia right now if they wanted to. All right. Um, but they're just waiting for the right moment. Okay, they're waiting to build up their military, and then once they're more powerful militarily, that's when they're going to start to make big moves. Okay, like we saw recently, the South China Sea, the last 10 years, the moves that they've been making there. I think that that's just the beginning. Okay. I think as time goes on, unless the trend reverses and China has an economic collapse or a revolution, that's going to continue, and it's not just going to be the South China Sea. They may try to expand into Mongolia, Kazakhstan. They may go after Japan or Australia, and I think that's what's going to happen. So guys, we have to prepare for an EMP from China or Russia. We have to prepare for a possible future war with China, and if that war never comes, at the very least, we have to prepare for the possibility that China is going to outpace us economically. Okay. So we have a few different threats to worry about, and then we have the election coming up. All right. So guys, please prepare. Do whatever you can. Don't panic. All right, but go out, get what you need, get prepared. The election is going to be crazy, and again, I think that an EMP threat is very real. I think that a cyber attack, a massive cyber attack, is very real. All right. They could hit us with a massive cyber attack and take out many different companies, and they could shut down our whole economy with a cyber attack. Okay, they have a very good cyber warfare division in China, and if they hit all of the big companies at once, they could shut down an entire sector of our economy, and that would have the same effect as an EMP basically at that point. Um, so I wanted to just talk about this. Okay, get prepped: food, water, shelter, bug out location, security. Okay, anything else you think you would need? All right, do it now. Do it as soon as possible. Don't panic. Have a plan. All right, prep within your budget. All right, prep within your means. Don't go crazy, but get serious, guys, because I don't think the threat from China is going to diminish. I think if anything, as time goes on, the threat from China is going to increase. Okay. So be ready for all those things: EMP, cyber attack, internet outage, and even possibly World War III or an invasion of the US. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the three P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.